another day. It's actually Sunday, but yeah, I've been a little eager to unbox some parts. So in the previous part of this video, we did the full PCI vented side skirt install, and they look sick. The car looks so aggressive. And then we got the 285s on the front. So a little bit more about the 285s, right? So the goal is to add more power, which means we have to add more weight. But if we add enough weight, we can actually jump up to the next tire category, which allows me to run a 285 in the front and a 225 in the back. Now, the Falcon 660 Plus is known to have like a magic first heat cycle. So it would kind of suck testing that tire on the test day and then kind of using up the good juice that those tires have. So I actually ended up buying is just the standard 660 in the 285 size. And it was actually half off on Tire Rack because it was a pretty old date code. It's like a 2022 date code. But the idea is I'm just gonna use this tire to do the test day, practice, make sure it doesn't rub, make sure I have no major issues, and then kind of figure out the handling balance. And then for qualifying, I'll probably buy another full set of 660 plus 285s in the front, and then 660 plus 225 in the back. And the reason I need to test is because normally I run a 255 in the front, 225 in the back, so we're adding a ton of front grip to this car, which is going to require a significant amount of setup change. For now, I want to talk a little bit about power. And I got a lot of empty cardboard boxes because the table is full of parts. But before I get to that, I kind of want to, show you guys the current setup that I'm running. So a little bit of background, GLTC, it's a power to weight class. So regardless of what kind of power you make, you have to basically subtract or remove weight of the car to match the power to weight formula. The way the engines are kind of equalized in the series is they have to fit in a certain power range. So the first power range is basically sub 200. And then there's 3 categories within that based on how much you detune. So if you run kind of a natural power curve, about 1,000 RPM a flat, you get this percentage. If you have 1,500 RPM a flat, you get a higher percentage. And then if you have more than that, you get an even higher percentage. And then you jump into the next category if you have between 200 to 230 horsepower with the 3 splits based on how much flat power. And then you have another category on top of that if you have more than 230. I'll show kind of the breakout here. But basically, I chose to run this engine at sub 200 horsepower with only 1K of RPM flat, which gets me the most negative percentage that you could possibly get. At that horsepower, I can run the car pretty light, and that's kind of what we call the light car formula. That's what I've ran for a while, and it's been pretty successful on most tracks, but whenever there's a long straightaway, the car always struggles. You guys see me always waving people goodbye whenever we get on a straightaway. It's because they have a little bit more torque, they have a little more power, they can cut through that drag a little bit easier. So at small tracks like CMP, the light car formula is great, but when you go to big tracks like Mid-Ohio, Road America, Road Atlanta, this car starts to struggle. We need more power. But before we get into that, here's my current setup. And a lot of people always tell me, well, why don't you do this intake manifold? It makes more power, yada, yada. It doesn't matter because I have to detune this engine anyway to get to 198, which is why I run the RSX Type S intake manifold, mainly because it has really good hood clearance. And then I run just a regular 9th gen throttle body because they're cheap and you can get them easily. And I have to run a restrictor plate anyway. So it's a 50 mil restrictor plate. And then I have to detune with the throttle body on top of that to make 198 horsepower. And then I run a pretty small filter. It's just a K&N. It's enclosed in this nice chamber. I can feed that whole chamber cool air from this duct, but it's a pretty restrictive filter. It's small, doesn't really make that much power. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I do to this engine because I have to detune it to 198 horsepower anyway. With the new goal of adding power and adding weight and adding tire to the car, I need to get it to 216. And I need 216 with 1K flat, and I need to have good top end range. So I need to kind of mimic a natural curve. I took the restrictor plate off, and I took the throttle body detune off at Gingerman, and I tested it on the dyno.
I know, my car's loud, I'm sorry.
And it made about 215 wheel horsepower, but the curve did not really look that great. And I also wanted to mention, the car is running E85. With this setup, full power on E85, it made 215. But like I said, the power curve wasn't ideal. I kind of want more top end power, and I can tell we're losing a lot of top end power because we have a pretty small throttle body, we have a pretty small intake, we are having a little bit of restriction, especially at the top end of the power curve. To get an optimal curve, I basically need to make more power around 220, maybe even above the 220s, and I need to pull it back down to 216, have that 1K flat, have good top end range. So we need some power mods. And that's where this whole table comes in. This is all to make more power, baby. So we're gonna unlock the full potential of this K24 with just a few simple bolt-ons, and I'm super pumped. So let's get into the details. Primary goal with all these mods is to make this engine breathe better. So step number one, hitting my boys at V Raceworks down in NYC, and I got myself a Skunk 2 Ultra Street in the wrinkled black finish. And I chose this guy, one, because it's got good hood clearance. It's small, it's compact, it swoops down. This thing should make power. I talked to a few people in Club TR, which they're allowed to do basically a full power K24s. And a lot of those guys run this intake manifold. The other idea that I had was getting like an RSP, which is like a Euro FN2 Type R, but hard to get, only make them in Europe. A few people reached out to me that they had them, but they were all in like Germany, France. So V Raceworks came through, shipped me out one of these intake manifolds. So this is step number one. This should make good power. Step number two, basically everything here is from Hybridracing. So shout out to those guys. Bigger throttle body, and I'm talking way bigger. This is, I believe, like a 70 mil throttle body, and it's actually even bigger on the front side. It tapers down, but it's still a beefy throttle body. I think going from like a 64 to like a 70 something. This is a ZDX throttle body, part number right there. So this, I think, is gonna make a ton of power. And of course it's drive-by-wire, so I still have my auto-blip, no lift shift. That's gonna be sweet. And I love OEM Honda parts. So if I can run an OEM Honda throttle body and make more power, that's a win-win for me. And then Hybridracing, they have this sweet little plug, which will actually plug this map sensor. I don't run a map sensor on my car. I actually run the Haltech breather from the intake manifold all the way to the ECU. And another great thing about this Skunk 2 is we have basically all of these ports that I can just put a fitting on. In order to bolt this guy to the Skunk 2, I need to run one of these Hybridracing throttle body adapter. So this is an adapter to go from, I believe it's an RSX, and as you can see, it's already machined to that exact diameter. It goes from RSX to ZDX, so that'll bolt right up. And Hybrid supplies these awesome plastic thermal gaskets to reduce the amount of heat transfer from the engine to the throttle body. But yeah, these two parts right here are gonna make the biggest difference. They're gonna make the most power, and then of course, the throttle body adapter to even get it on there. Now, all of this stuff here is intake parts. This is a big intake tube. This is 3.5 inch, which is nice because this will go basically perfectly onto that throttle body to use all that air. What they actually did is they actually sent me an 8th gen SI throttle body, and this is their big diameter tube with the big filter. So this makes the most power on the 8th gen. Now, of course, I'm gonna have to basically modify my car a little bit because my car's not an 8th gen, it's a 5th gen. But basically what they did is they sent me a bunch of parts, and I'm gonna use these parts to kind of make my own intake. And what I wanna do is I wanna get it into the wheel well, get cold air from there. But just kind of looking at this 8th gen, it's super sick. Like especially this part right here. This part is their water safety system. So I just love the way they have it designed. They have like this little foam mesh. And the way this kind of works is you put the pipe on, and then if it sucks up water, it can breathe through these vents that come out to atmosphere right here, right? So if I do, you put this tube right here, the intake will still be able to breathe through that part right there. It's just a super cool design, and it allows you to put like the mass flow sensor, and then all of the intake manifold breather lines can go here, so they supply everything here. And then of course, because it's like a cold air intake for an 8th gen SI, the battery's in the way. So Hybrid supplies this battery relocation bracket. This thing is beefy and super nice, super well made, nice anodized finished. It's pretty sweet. With that, we have all these clamps. This is probably my favorite part of the kit. It actually comes with 2 different tubes, which these come directly off the throttle body. And what's badass about this is that it has like this little lip that sits perfectly on the throttle body. So it comes with 2 because this is for the OEM 9th gen or 8th gen throttle body, or you can get this bigger guy, which this is for the ZDX. Boom, right here. And you know, they already have the length difference to account for the fact that you have to use an adapter. So they thought of everything. And it's cool because they send you both of these. So you can run it with the stock throttle body, or you can get the upgraded ZDX throttle body like I'm doing and run this, right? So this lip is sick because when you put this intake on, I don't know if you can see it, it is completely smooth in there. So that little ridge kind of sits right around that lip of the throttle body. It's just a perfect fit. Super cool. Love the fact that they kind of look at those little details. And I love the fact that they give you the option to run this on a stock throttle body or allow you to upgrade to a bigger throttle body with the adapter. Yeah, most of these parts I'm actually not gonna use. Like, I don't think I'm gonna use this guy because I don't really care about sucking up water. My car doesn't really suck up water because there's a splitter underneath it and it's got fender liners. You know, not gonna use a coolant hose relocation or any of these breather lines, but I am gonna use all of these filters, and we actually have a few. So Hybridracing was kind enough to send, I think, 3 total filters. Just in case they get dirty, I can swap them out. They sent me an extra tube if I need to kind of route the intake in a certain direction. I bought this pipe off Amazon Prime. It's just a 3.5-inch pipe. So if I need to make like connections, connect these 2 pipes together, I'll basically cut this down and I'll do a little roll bead on it. Also, these couplers, they sent me a bunch of DC Sports hose couplers. Skunk 2 intake manifold. It's gonna make a lot more power. Bigger throttle body, significantly bigger intake, and a velocity stack filter to basically make this engine breathe way better. And I think with all of these mods on the table, I'm expecting that we're gonna make about 224 is my guess. So I'm expecting to make 9 more horsepower than we did at Gingerman. And then we'll detune it there to make it 216 while having as much meat under the curve and just having that 1K of flat RPM. So it's a lot of talking. Got all the old stuff off. Yeah, RSX type S intake manifold. It's been great for me. Makes just enough power. Like I said, don't care. This is the throttle body I'm using. That is the restrictor plate. So that is what I've been breathing through this whole season and most of last season. I've used this restrictor plate for quite a bit. And once again, 9th gen. Let's compare these throttle bodies because it's a huge difference. 9th gen, ZDX. Boom, that is huge. It's so big that you can just go over the mouth of the other one. But yeah, the back side is where it is extremely obvious. So look at that, look at this tiny little. Yeah, so significant upgrade in terms of diameter. Even without this restrictor plate, let's see if I could take this plate off. Usually kind of stuck on there because of the rubber seal. There we go. The 9th gen is about 64 and the 8th gen is 70. So 6 millimeters is a big difference. And I know that firsthand because I've experimented between 50 mil restrictor plates, which is I believe what this guy is. I believe that's a 50 mil. Yep, 50 mil. And I actually used a 55 mil and it made way more power. So that's 5 mil. So 6 mil here, that's a big difference. And if we flip it over, the ZDX makes the most amount of sense for a 3.5-inch intake because look at this inlet size, 69, and this is 80. That's why we got all these parts here for using the full potential of that throttle body. So back to the 8th gen hybrid intake, right? You get two options for the inlet pipe. You get that guy or you get this guy. So obviously this is EDX. And then this guy would be for this guy. It just fits right on. Yeah, I got all this stuff off. I kind of got a little excited. I was gonna wait until tomorrow to throw the skunk tube manifold on, but I got it on. And yeah, it's sick. It's super small, it's compact. And the best part is, clears the hood. Yeah, hood closes, no issues. So that's good news, because that was my biggest concern with going with different intake manifold, is losing that excellent hood clearance the RSX gives you. But yeah, man, it looks sweet. Wrinkle black, I think it's gonna look sick. I do wanna paint the valve cover wrinkle black as well. Let's throw on the adapter and just mock up the throttle body for now. Gotta take off this map sensor. We don't need it, we don't use it. And Hybridracing makes this sweet little delete. It's got a little O-ring on there, so it's not just like a standard flat plate. It's pretty much perfect. Boom. All right. Got the throttle body, got the temporary adapter. We're currently getting a special adapter. It's being machined right now by Pat, and it's basically going to kind of move this throttle body out a little bit, and it's going to add two flanges to basically use a soft coupler to connect the throttle body to the intake manifold. And the idea behind that is to just isolate the throttle body from vibrations, because the vibrations is what kills these things prematurely. So this is kind of a temporary setup, but I'm gonna start working on mocking up the intake setup. So this was the old setup. It had this little canister which keeps the filter inside of it, and it worked really well. And you know, you get fresh air, and there you can see the filter. The problem is it just gets clogged up so fast, especially if you're in traffic. It's a big issue. I'm kind of going away from that. I don't want to have direct feed air going into the intake. I want to kind of hide the intake in a spot where it's going to be a little bit more protected from the environment. Because I basically just install this like the 8th gen, and that would require me to pop this guy into this hole right here. And as you can tell, there is not a lot of space there. But I think if I make some room and cut a little bit more out, I think I could just pop this tube in here, and then I could just go boom, boom. All right, we got Roy helping out today. He's doing some valve cover work because I've been rocking the stock valve cover for way too long, and it's just kind of lame. So Roy's gonna hit it up with some of his magic. Apparently, what do you say, Roy?
I do valve covers better than I drive.
I don't believe that, but he must drive pretty good, so that means his valve covers must be even better. So yeah, we're gonna hit it up, probably do a wrinkle black, but I'm working on finalizing the intake setup. So I've enlarged it a little bit with a finger grinder. Pretty simple, yeah, just intake just slides right in there. I'll have a little metal coupler connecting that guy, and then intake will go basically right here. Boom, basically just like that. Nice and simple, pretty easy setup, and I think that should work pretty well. All right, excuse the poor lighting. Got dark pretty quick. Me and Roy, we've been doing work. I've been basically finishing up the intake setup. I basically managed to make the large tube 8th gen intake fit in an older chassis, and it works really good. This is what you would use if you had an 8th gen. You would use this little, it's like a water bypass, so if your filter sucks up a bunch of water, it'll allow it to breathe out of these foam ports, and then you know, you have your breather for your intake, and then you have another one for some other breather, and then you would have your mass flow sensor in here. This is gonna go away. That's gonna get deleted. This whole throttle body is gonna shift over probably a few inches. What's cool is just, you know, looking at this like it would be an 8th gen, right? Fancy throttle body, you got the big ZDX, you got the hybrid adapter. So all of this stuff, you know, you can buy it from Hybridracing. Of course, I got a code in my description, get you a discount. You can have it set up just like this. This is the best performing intake for an 8th gen that you can get. Like I said, man, it's really well engineered. All of the pipes, you know, they fit really well. They have smooth transitions, you know, and you have this big velocity stack filter right down here in the bumper. Overall, super pumped with this setup. And I think it was really cool that I made it work as an 8th gen would. Nothing's modified here. This is all just bolted on. All I had to modify, of course, was the hole in the chassis. And then I had to, of course, relocate my water reservoir, which is here. So I had this Chase Bays reservoir, and the way I have this guy mounted is I have a bracket up top to there, and then I have a bracket down below to the frame rail. So that means that guy, super sturdy. I would say 95% done minus the adapter. So, you know, we got the Skunk 2 Ultra Street, got my RDX injectors on here. Of course, we're pumping E85, so we got the Haltech Flex Fuel sensor, E85 into there, more power, good intake manifold, 74 millimeter opening, 70 something millimeter ZDX throttle body with a big flange and a 3.5 inch intake to a big filter. We're gonna make some serious power. Roy's been working on painting one of my valve covers because he's sick of looking at the silver. It's looking pretty sweet.
It's gonna look...
Oh, I like your shirt, but I didn't even notice you were wearing the shirt.
Really?
Yo, turn around. What do you got on the back? Oh, dude, I can't wait for the new shirts to come out. Did someone say new shirts?
Brand new shirt design, available now at hybridracing.com. JTC inspired Honda Civic. Beautiful shirt, now with the current livery. I love the design, and it has all of the car stats on the bottom. Pretty awesome shirt. This is what the front looks like, a pretty simple EKR logo. So yeah, available now at hybridracing.com. All the profits, you guys already know this, it's going right back into the car. It's helping the racing program. So I appreciate the support. You guys are awesome. One last one about the shirt. Senna's hair is not included.
I seriously appreciate the support. You guys have been loving the videos. And if you guys can like, subscribe, leave some comments, that would really help me out. And I'm trying to pump out more content, and you guys seem to be really enjoying it. So once again, thank you so much. Yeah, Roy killed it. Shaved the Honda logo. What else did you shave?
There was like nubs right here. Got rid of those and matched the...
And you got rid of like the casting lines too in a few spots, right?
There's some casting lines I got rid of over here.
So Roy kind of just went ham, which is freaking awesome, man. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yep.
It's gonna look sick, and we're just gonna do regular wrinkle black because I think it's gonna look sick. You know, wrinkle black intake for V-Raceworks, wrinkle black valve cover. All the intake parts are wrinkle black. You know, my plate here also black.
Oh no.
Oh, dude, are you serious?
Damn.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
no way.
looks like we'll have to buy. Maybe, yeah, if you clean that up, it might be clogged.
Oh, what the crap.
See, that's so shitty. I wonder if I have.
Different color?
Is that the same thing you got?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah.
back in the shop. It's the weekend before Mid-Ohio, so got a lot of work to do. I've covered a lot of fun stuff earlier in this video, right? So we got the engine mods all done. We got the PCI side skirts. Those are fun mods. Also, yeah, can't forget about the 285 Falcons. So, like I said, those are fun mods. More power, more grip, better aero. That's sweet. But now we're getting into the not fun mods, and that's the extra weight I have to carry to be able to run all of these upgrades. It's a power to weight series. More power means more weight, and more weight also means more tire. So that's why I'm getting the wider tire on the front. We have to add, let's take a look here. We're at 2587. My new race weight is 2725, and because I won 3 races this season already, that means I have to add an additional 3%. That means I have to hit 2809 pounds. So let's do some quick math. 2809 minus 2588. I have to add 221 pounds to this car to surpass the minimum weight. I have to probably add even more to leave me a safety buffer. How am I gonna do that? Well, I have 2 provisions on the car to add ballast quickly and easily. One, which I covered a few times already in past videos, is my weight plate. So each of these lead bricks is about 25 pounds. So 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, and then I think I have a small one. So it's like 137 point something. So that's 137 pounds. I could put basically a little bit past the midpoint of the car on the right side, which the right side of the car is already light, so that's good. And then the other spot I could add weight is back here, which is a little loose. I gotta tighten it up, but that's like pretty good setup. It's plated on both sides, so I could probably put 75 pounds back there. So if my math's right, I should be able to add about 210 pounds with just those 2 spots alone. So that sucks. The good thing about adding weight to a race car is you get to put it wherever you want, right? So like I said, the right side of this car is already light because I sit on the left. So adding weight to the right side is actually better because a majority of the tracks everywhere across the world, they are all clockwise. So it helps having more weight on the right side of the car, right? Because you're unloading it and you're putting a lot of weight on the left, so more weight on the right, it just helps a little bit more with grip. And the right side's already light on this car, so putting the weight on the right side, that's gonna help. Number 2, it's also really low. That weight is basically right there in line with the side skirt. Nice and low, that's gonna improve center of gravity, that's gonna help a bit. And then the weight back here is going to increase the weight in the back a lot more. So we're gonna have better weight distribution front to rear. Yeah, it sucks adding 225 pounds, but the grand scheme of things, it's actually not that bad because it's gonna be lower center of gravity and it's where I want the weight anyway. I'm hoping that the weight on the front wheels is only gonna increase by maybe 20 pounds per corner. Let's just start adding weight and let's see where we end up. Jeez. All right, so that's the weight plate added. Quick little check. We're at 2697. How much weight did we add to the front? What is that, 44 pounds? Added 44 pounds to the front? Yeah, so about 113 pounds added, and only 40 of that went to the front wheels. So not bad. That's actually pretty good. Now let's move to the rear. This is great for my back. I love this. Need a longer bolt. Shit. Quick little comparison check. Not bad, 2772. So like I said, we need to get to 2809 at least. So we still got a little bit more to go. 58.2% front. Before I put the rear plates, we were at 60% front. So we just moved 2% of the weight to the back. It's not bad at all. All right, so I gotta get a longer bolt because obviously I ran out of thread. Looks like that one's okay. And then I'm gonna have to add more weight somewhere else. So I'm gonna have to make something. It hurts. It's, yeah, ouch. 220 something pounds. Decent amount. But it's gonna be worth it because that extra 18 horsepower, wider tires, it's gonna be good. You're gonna see. You might not understand yet, but raceability is going to improve a lot, especially at the higher speeds. Like above 110 miles per hour, that extra 18 horsepower is gonna be doing a lot more work than it was at 198. The weight's gonna suck, but I think I could drive around it. 2 weight plates right here. These are both 10 pounders. This is from my personal weightlifting stash from the basement. Probably about 160 pounds right there on the front. And then in the back, I added another 10 pounds onto the stack. And it was really frustrating because I actually had to grind the edges of that weight plate down just because those washers didn't fit. The bolt holes were too close to that ridge. So that's about what? That's 85 pounds in the back there. Now, after adding 225 pounds, the front weight is now 17. So we only added 33 pounds total onto the front axis, which when you think about it, that's pretty badass. I added 225 pounds and only 33 pounds of that is on the front of this car, which is great, you know, because it's a front-wheel drive car. It really likes to use the front tires. So why don't we just move the weight to the back and kind of share the load on the rear tires? Of course, now it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because I'm gonna have 285s in the front and I'm gonna have 225s in the back. So it might be a little hairy on the back tires, but I'm pretty happy with that. Our front percent weight is now 57%, whereas before it was 61%. So we just added 3% of the weight to the rear axle. So anyway, I'm tired. I'm gonna take a little break. It's extremely hot in the garage. And after that, I'm going to work on actually setting the car up. A few things to note, right? I added a bunch of weight to the car, and that basically means I have to kind of change the setup entirely, right? So especially on the rear axle, I'm running pretty soft springs, so I might actually have to go up in spring rate in the back just to end up at the same natural frequency of the rear suspension. And I'm gonna have to do some calculations on the front because I might have to go from 200 Newton per millimeter or whatever the units are to 220s. Whereas in the back, I'm at 180, I might have to go to 200. So I'm gonna go crunch some numbers, look at my sheets, and then figure out what spring rates I want to run. And then another thing you have to note is the rear is absolutely slammed right now. So I'm gonna have to raise the rear ride height, probably a little bit on the front too, but you can't just add weight to a car and then just run it as is basically what I'm trying to say, is you have to adjust the setup. You're gonna have to change spring rate, you're gonna have to change the ride height. And then also, of course, I'm gonna have to corner balance a little bit differently. I think I have a little bit too much weight on the right front. If we look at our cross, we're at 51.2%. Cross weight's pretty important because cross weight is looking how much percent weight is on this axis right here. So front right, left rear. And cross weight's pretty important because, like I said before, most tracks are clockwise. So you want more weight on the inside front. But that might be too much. I don't know yet. It might be okay. Anyway, I'm blabbling. I'm gonna take a break. I'll be right back. Weight is complete. Got my weight in. And I was at 2802, so about 6 pounds light. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna do setup, and then I'll worry about the last remaining pounds later. Well, they showed up. I weighed the car with my 225s, and of course, I'm now going with the 285s. How much more do 285s weigh than 225s? Let's take a look at the scale, because 18 by 10.5, 285 Falcon is 50 pounds. That's pretty heavy, man. I remember when I used to run 15s and it was like 30 pounds a wheel. 50 pounds for this behemoth. It's a lot of tire. Let's see how much this setup weighs. 42 pounds. So 42 pounds to 50 pounds. So I just gained 16 pounds just due to tire. So anyway, I'm good. Car on the scales with the 285 Falcons. We're at 28.14.
And I also worked on the corner weights a little bit. Let's take a look at that again. So yeah, 49.5% cross weight. I might try to put a little bit more weight on the right front, but it was pretty much spot on. But now I'm getting into camber adjustment, so it's gonna mess with the cross weights a little bit. But anyway, we got enough weight now. So thanks, Falcon. I think I'm done. A lot of work, but the car looks pretty hot, gotta admit. Oh man, honestly, so many changes in probably the past 2 weeks. It's honestly pretty crazy. The most amount of mods I've done to this car in a long time. I've kind of stuck with the same formula since I really built it. Probably the second year is when I really kind of advanced this car with the flares, the wing, the 18s. The first season, the car was kind of in testing phase. But since the second year, it hasn't really changed much. I've ran the same lightweight, low power, 18-inch, 255 front kind of setup, and it's worked pretty well. But like I said, I'm done with that. And we're going heavy, we're going high power, we're going fat effing tires on the front, and I'm excited to see how it's gonna do at Mid-Ohio. If it sucks, I could always revert it back to the old setup. It's not gonna be that hard, I just gotta pull the weight out of it. But I do think this new setup is gonna work really well. Let's kind of summarize the changes. Most importantly, we got a ton of engine mods. So we're going from 198, and I think we're targeting 214. But with all of this, all of these upgrades, we're probably gonna make mid 220, and then I'm gonna pull it back down to 214 once again with the detune. Brand new Skunk 2 Ultra Street manifold from Raceworks, Hybridracing adapter, ZDX throttle body from Hybridracing, that's 70 mil, big 8th gen intake tube, that's a 3.5 inch intake with a velocity stack filter, and I kind of just made my own adapter here to kind of delete the water bypass. But I love how this thing kind of flows. It fits nice and snug around the throttle body, it's got smooth transitions all over. And then we got an intake filter right here behind the bumper. A lot of people are gonna be worried about water. Well, I have fender liners, so no need to worry about that. To feed that filter with cold air, I got two, I think 2.5 inch pipes. One goes down, one goes up above the beam, and they both go kind of into this pocket. So we're gonna get fresh cold air. It's gonna be really good power. This is the highest horsepower intake you can get for an 8th gen. Chase Bay's water reservoir, because I had the OEM guy here, obviously doesn't fit anymore. My boy Roy, shout out Simple Speed, he painted the valve cover. Dude, he shaved all of the little tabs, all of the casting lines. It looks phenomenal. And then he shaved the Honda. It just looks really good. It's a simple rattle can paint job, wrinkle black. It's like VHT, high temp or whatever. And I kind of matched the same wrinkle black on this aluminum tube. I think it looks pretty good. And of course it matches the wrinkle black. It's going to, hold on boys. I think it's gonna make mid 220s, and we're gonna pull it back down to 214 because we're allowed to do 1K flat of RPM without a penalty. We'll see, we're gonna put on the dyno. More on that later. Since we have more power, we need to add more weight. We got this massive weight plate here now up front, and then we also have weight in the back, about 80 pounds. Because we added the weight, it allowed us to go up a size in tire width. So I went from a 255 Kumo V730. The Kumo doesn't come in the size that I needed, which is why I switched to the Falcon. So this is a 285 3018. This boy is thick, and she just barely fits. Side skirts, PCI, Pro Car Innovations. They sent 4-inch vented side skirts. They look sick. You gotta admit, these things look extreme. Makes the car look super freaking low. Like this rear angle here. Okay, yeah, just walk in front of that skirt, that's fine. Yep, stand right there, bud. Perfect. So yeah, I think they look sick. And I think they will improve performance a little bit, kind of keep air from going underneath the car. Driver cooling duct, which I'm still waiting on a pipe. And I think that's basically it. So anyway, Mid-Ohio, up next. I have one more thing left to do tonight, and that's actually drive this car on the street, do some street pulls down in Mexico, and send the data logs to my tuner, Rick, at Haltech, just because we are gonna have to slightly adjust air-fuel ratio
due to the larger intake setup. You know, more air going into the engine now, so we're probably gonna have a little bit more fuel that we need to add. Hopefully I have enough injector, because we are on RDX injectors and they're usually about like 85% duty cycle, but I think it'll be all right. So anyway, I've been talking for a little bit too long. Mid-Ohio up next. It's gonna be awesome. I'm pumped. A lot of my family's coming out. Home track, completely new setup. I think the car's gonna be a ripper, so wish me luck, and then I'll see you guys at the track.